How do I know if food left at room temperature is still safe to eat? If I left food out of the refrigerator for some period of time, is it still safe? If I left it out too long, can I salvage it by cooking it more?
When in doubt, throw it out. You cannot always see or smell bacterial contamination. Mold that appears to be growing only on the surface may grow invisible roots into softer foods. Do not rely on a visual inspection or smell test to tell you whether or not a food is safe. It's not worth the risk. Food poisoning can be much, much worse than an upset stomach. The danger zone per the USDA guidelines, potentially hazardous food that stays in the temperature danger zone, 40 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, 4-60 degrees Celsius, for more than 2 hours should be discarded. For temperatures above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, 32 degrees Celsius, the limit is 1 hour. Asterisk, potentially hazardous foods are those foods that spoil most easily, such as unshelled eggs, raw meats, fish, shellfish, dairy products, almost all cooked foods. This time is cumulative, so it includes time bringing the food home from the grocery store, time before cooking, time after cooking, and so on. The reason is that while cooking may destroy bacteria or other pathogens, it doesn't always destroy the toxins that they have produced. In general, regarding perishable foods like meat, most dairy, unshelled eggs and shell eggs, in the U.S., cooked casseroles, and so on, if the food, or its perishable components, have been at room temperature for more than 2 hours, you should discard that food. To avoid the danger zone, keep cooked food hot until ready to eat, then refrigerate immediately. Separate large items into smaller containers to help them to cool more quickly. If you're defrosting something, do it in the fridge or under cold running water. If you can be certain that the food was not in the danger zone, then yes, it is safe. For example, if you left a large chunk of frozen meat out and it is still frozen solid, including the surface, when you come back to it, it was not in the danger zone. Why is it so strict? Why didn't I get sick? These guidelines are about making sure you don't get a foodborne illness, i.e., reducing the risk to where it's so small as to not be an issue. So if you break the rules, e.g., eating food that's been left at room temperature for 8 hours, that doesn't mean you will get sick, just that you're taking a risk. Why does cooking not completely reset the clock? Some bacteria leave behind harmful protein toxins that cannot be killed, denatured by cooking. Cooking food is only effective against live organisms, not their toxic waste products. Spoiled food cannot be cooked back to safety and must be discarded. Cooking is pasteurization, not sterilization. Pasteurization means killing most microbes, so as to render the food safe for human consumption. Sterilization methods, e.g., pressure canning and irradiation, are the only safe methods for longer-term room temperature storage. Otherwise, the danger zone rules always apply. Even sterilized food can only remain sterile under an airtight seal, e.g., when properly canned or vacuum sealed. Once it is opened, it is no longer sterile. Air contains countless bacteria and molds, and their spores, which will readily recolonize any suitable environment they encounter. Cooked food tends to be an ideal medium for growth. What can I leave out longer? For foods that aren't potentially hazardous as described above, there's no solid rule, but things are generally safe for much longer than the 2 hours given above. For example, things which are sold at room temperature, e.g., fresh produce, bread, or cookies, are most likely safe at least all day or overnight, if not for days or even months. You can find guidelines for common things at Still Tasty. Regulation and risks follow the guidelines set out by reputable regulatory agencies, especially when serving others. Local organizations include FDA Food Code, USDA, CFIA, Canada Food Standards Agency, UK. Other regulatory sources apply in other parts of the world, but major food safety organizations usually agree in essence, if not in complete detail, on most issues. Failure to follow reputable guidelines is irresponsible if you are serving guests, and failure to follow your specific local codes is likely to be illegal if you are serving customers. Health codes tend to be very conservative, to fully protect the community. You have the right to take risks on yourself by ignoring their recommendations, but please do not risk the safety of others. Again, when in doubt. Once again, if you suspect spoilage or contamination, please throw it out. Asterisk note, this is the USDA's rule. Other agencies may have variations on it. Additionally, government agencies generally make very conservative recommendations. They're trying to make sure that no one who follows the rules gets sick. Breaking the rules means maybe taking on some risk. That's up to you. Just remember, eventually someone gets unlucky, and food poisoning is not fun. Helpful resources: Wikipedia, Food Safety USDA Fact Sheets. Still tasty, has information on storage methods, times for almost every food. Further reading, frequently asked: why is it dangerous to eat meat which has been left out and then cooked? How long can I store a food in the pantry, refrigerator, or freezer? What do I need to know about temperature and food safety? Is there a problem with defrosting meat on the counter? How long can cooked food be safely stored at room warm temperature? Is it safe to cook a steak that was left out raw for 7 hours? How long can eggs be unrefrigerated before becoming unsafe to eat? Should I refrigerate eggs? The question was, if I left food out of the refrigerator for some period of time, is it still safe? If I left it out too long, can I salvage it by cooking it more? Answer: it depends. How long did you leave it outside the fridge? What kind of food are we talking about? What is the moisture content of the food and the humidity of the air in the room? Is the air reasonably clean? Did you put it on a clean or contaminated surface? Is it raw or cooked food? These are just a couple of questions so you get the general idea that it really is impossible to give a generalized answer to the question. Considering that only a surprisingly small percentage of the world's population actually has access to refrigerators and people still eat, I think it might be obvious that refrigeration is really not the only way to store food for later consumption. For a more in-depth study of the topic, I recommend Food Safety, The Science of Keeping Food Safe by Ian C. Shaw. As a more general tip, I would stick to common sense. E.g., any food containing raw eggs, mayonnaise, or food that must by its nature be considered contaminated, store-bought raw chicken, raw meat, needs to be handled in a reasonable manner. You should be able to find the correct advice about handling these kinds of foods in any good cookbook, to avoid colonization to an unhealthy, when eaten, even after cooking point. On the other end of the spectrum, leafy vegetables or fruit bought fresh from a farmer's market actually comes with its own protection in the form of beneficial bacteria on the skin and is therefore less likely to be easily, meaning in a short time, colonized by pathogenic organisms. Learn about your food and learn how to cook and you probably will be safe.